coming on. You're just finding out, and we've been talking today about these Guantanamo Bay detainees and how they're re-engaging in terrorism, according to some stories. Then we have the Pentagon announcing a dozen more transfers, with 2 of them reportedly heading this weekend to Africa. Republican Congressman from Virginia, Randy Forbes, joins us on this. What do you make of this, Congressman?
Well, you know, most Americans are very concerned about ISIS. It seems sometimes the president's more concerned about releasing terrorists from Guantanamo Bay. What we do know factually is that of those detainees that are released, at least 30% of them either re-engage in terrorism or are suspected of re-engaging in terrorism. The other thing we know that of all of the detainees that have been at Guantanamo Bay, no detainee has ever been tortured, mistreated, and no detainee there has ever killed an American in terrorism. Some of the detainees that have been released have killed Americans, and that's a fact most people are concerned about. You
know the argument on the other side that this does help our relations with other countries. It also makes us safer because, you know, essentially people don't hate America as much if things like this happen. And you say what?
Well, I think that is kind of a fallacious argument. One of the concerns that we have, obviously, is when people commit terrorism, we want them locked up. We don't want them recommitting that again. It just doesn't make sense to release them back out and have to recapture them again and to think somehow that makes people love Americans more. On May 28, 2010, I had one of the first provisions. It was an amendment to the National Defense Bill that stopped the president from bringing those terrorists to U.S. soil, which is what he first wanted to do. I think he needs to be very careful about releasing them in other places around the globe.
What about the fact that, I think the president said this, that we do have terrorism trials here. We've had them in New York, federal court, and, you know, our authorities know how to manage them, and they go on, people are convicted, and they're sent to jail or whatever happens. It could be a death sentence, whatever it may be, but the trials take place, and they have taken place in American soil before, right?
Well, what the president doesn't tell you, though, Connell, is the fact that the moment they hit U.S. soil, these terrorists get increased and enhanced constitutional rights that they wouldn't get if we prosecuted them in Guantanamo Bay. Those enhanced constitutional rights can sometimes make it very, very difficult to use the evidence that we use when we actually capture those terrorists in other places around the globe. And the final thing that he doesn't tell you is if you house them in U.S. soil, you've basically put a target on every elementary school, shopping mall, retail store in that area for terrorist attacks around the globe. We'd rather have them at Guantanamo Bay.
So finally, what do you think is going to happen, say, if a Republican is elected president, will a prison in Guantanamo Bay or like Guantanamo Bay exist going forward? Are we too far down the line with this? What do you think is going to happen next if, in a hypothetical, a Republican becomes president?
Connell, I believe if a Republican becomes president, you're going to have a shift in priority. You and I aren't going to be talking as much about Guantanamo Bay and the terrorists there. What we're going to be talking about is the fact that we'll finally have a strategy to go after ISIS. We'll resource that strategy, and we'll have the commitment to make sure that we're actually destroying ISIS. That's what most Americans want to see. That's what I think a Republican nominee is going to give for us.
All right, fair enough, Congressman. Thank you. Congressman Forbes with us.
Thank you.
In the state of Virginia. We want to take another quick look at the market because, not much, but we've turned lower a little bit, right? 4.5 points on the Dow. Still